Now, throughout our history, there have been many who have advocated for and attempted to establish socialist policy.
Along with that, they've also had their counterparts who oppose and attack socialism at every moment.
Thus, we have created a place to commemorate the most important of these socialists and a place to reflect on the unnecessary leadership of the capitalist pigs.
First, our Hall of Fame.
There is power in a man.
Number 1 on our list is none other than Karl Marx. This co-author of the Communist Manifesto, a strong advocate for the economics of socialism, said, "In bourgeois society, capital is independent and has individuality, while the living person is dependent and has no individuality." He also said, "Society does not consist of individuals, but expresses the sum of interrelations, the relations within which these individuals stand."
Come on, do your share, lend a hand.
Next up, el cubano Fidel Castro. This communist dictator of Cuba has created a Cuba that is quite wealthy. Listen for yourself.
You feel socialism works. It seems that the tide in the rest of the world is turning away, that you see China allowing more free enterprise. The Soviet Union is no more. We see people in your country hungry. We see people going on boats and risking their lives to leave this country. So it seems to many people that socialism is not working. Does socialism work?
Yes, it does. Yes, our socialism works in our country. I can only speak to you about Cuba. I know what the Chinese have done and the Vietnamese have done for their people. If they did not have socialism, they wouldn't have been able to attain the economic growth they have today.
Our third honored socialist is Hugo Chavez. He's the current president of Venezuela and has brought a lot of prosperity there. Here's where he stands on socialism.
Y hoy no tengo duda al afirmar que requerimos construir un nuevo proyecto socialista. Y creo que una de las más grandes tareas de este momento, para nosotros como colectivo, pero para nosotros como seres individuales, tú mujer, tú hombre, camarada, compañera, compañero, es primero fortalecer nuestra conciencia, aclararnos cada día más la vista y el entendimiento a través de la discusión, del debate, de la lectura, de las ideas. Es fundamental. Estamos en un tiempo crucial. No hay tiempo que perder hoy. No hay tiempo para perder. Hay que ganarle tiempo al tiempo para consolidar nuestras ideas de un mundo distinto, alternativo y mejor, pero además de conformarnos cada día mejor nosotros mismos, debemos contagiar, permítanme la palabra, contagiar a quien se nos acerque. Pongámonos un letrero: soy socialista, acércate y te contagio.
Finally, our last and most recent addition to the Hall of Fame is Barry Dunham, otherwise known as Barack Obama. The 44th president made it onto our list when he said the following.
I think when you spread the wealth around, it's good for everyone.
And now, our Hall of Shame.
Our first capitalist pig is the father of capitalism himself, Adam Smith. This author of The Wealth of Nations said, "It is not from the benevolence of the butcher, the brewer, or the baker that we expect our dinner, but from their regard to their own interest." Well, Mr. Smith happens to be wrong. They're expected to be benevolent. Number 2 of our dishonored capitalists is the late economist Milton Friedman. Listen to the stupidity he has to say.
See, I think there's been one underlying basic fallacy in this whole set of Social Security and welfare measures. And that is the fallacy, this is at the bottom of it, the fallacy that it is feasible and possible to do good with other people's money. Now you see, that view has 2 flaws. If I'm going to do good with other people's money, I first have to take it away from them. That means that the welfare state philosophy of doing good with other people's money, at its very bottom, is a philosophy of violence and coercion. It's against freedom. because I have to use force to get the money. In the second place, very few people spend other people's money as carefully as they spend their own.
Our third greedy capitalist happens to have been Prime Minister of England, the name Margaret Thatcher, the game spewing lies. She once said, "The problem with socialism is that you eventually run out of other people's money." Not true. Since everyone is expected to work, the wealth never runs out. We commemorate the socialists who stood up to her in the following video.
What the honourable member is saying is that he would rather the poor were poorer, provided the rich were less rich. That way you will never create the wealth for better social services as we have. And what a policy! Yes, he would rather have the poor poorer, provided the rich were less rich. I think that the honourable gentleman knows that I have the same contempt for his socialist policies as the people of East Europe who have experienced it have before theirs.
Fourth on our list of the most greedy capitalist pigs is Ronald Reagan. This disgrace of a president had this to say about socialism.
Everywhere there is a socialist nation, there is a failure to meet the needs of the people of that nation, except by calling on capitalist neighbors for help.
He also had this to say.
And regardless of their sincerity, their humanitarian motives, those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. They use terms like the Great Society, or as we were told a few days ago by the President, we must accept a greater government activity in the affairs of the people. They have voices that say the Cold War will end through our acceptance of a not undemocratic socialism. Another voice says the profit motive has become outmoded. It must be replaced by the incentives of the welfare state. Or our traditional system of individual freedom is incapable of solving the complex problems of the 20th century. The full power of centralized government. This was the very thing the Founding Fathers sought to minimize. They knew that governments don't control things. A government can't control the economy without controlling people. And they know when a government sets out to do that, it must use force and coercion to achieve its purpose. They also knew, those Founding Fathers, that outside of its legitimate functions, government does nothing as well or as economically as the private sector of the economy.
Thank you for watching CNN, your communist news network. Good night.